session under the framework of the Exceed Skilling Program for VET professionals. Today, we will focus on how to innovate VET curricula when it comes to think about increase the overall innovation of curricula. For example, not only to embed the so-called eco-digital innovation perspective we explored last time with Professor Richard Puckett. But when it comes to innovate, thinking about global ecosystems, so when it comes to internationalize that curricula, we must have common tools. So we have to adopt a common way to describe competencies. This is the reason why today we will have a session subdivided in 3 blocks. The first block is focused on the ESCO database, the European database for skills and competencies. That is a very important tool for us. We will discover it more with Valentina Grganovic from the ESCO team, expert in labor market policies. ESCO means also common description of skill and competencies. The ESCO database has embedded recently digital and most of all green skills. So it's really important for us understand altogether how it can be a valuable resource for VET professionals. Then we will have a Q&A session just to, let's say, have some more exchanges regarding the different topics we are going to face today. Then after it, we will have the second block focused on new tools when it comes to validate and certificate achievements. So skills and competencies again. And we will discuss about micro-credentials for learning with a representative of the European Commission. So Isabel Ladrón Arroyo, that is the referent for the micro-credentials for learning initiatives. After the intervention of Isabel, we will have a 10-minute break. Again, a Q&A session. So feel free to use the chat anytime you want to ask something to our experts of today. We will, of course, read the questions during the encounter, or if time will not allow us to answer to all the questions, also through a follow-up email to all participants. Then last but not least, after exploring the meaning of micro-credentials for learning, we will see together what it means in practice to release micro-credentials, to certificate skills and competencies through micro-credentials for learning. We will have a discussion and a demonstration together with Kia Likitalo from NTT Data, the European Commission. So I think this encounter with these 3 blocks will help us to understand specifically how to internationalize that curricula when it comes to design and redesign new training programs focused on, let's say, eco-digital transition, internationalization, increased responsiveness of VET programs according to this overall perspective of sustainable competitiveness of the advanced manufacturing sector. That is the focus of our Exceed Center of Vocational Excellence. I leave the floor to Valentina. Please take your microphone off. Use the chat for any need or question. The session, as you know, will be recorded and uploaded on the Exceed web page dedicated to the program, together with all supporting materials and deepening resources every expert will share with us during the delivery. And thank you once again for joining the session of today. Valentina, please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elena. Let me just confirm that you can see the screen.
Yes, of course, you can. Yes. full screen, you can try to.
Okay.
Okay, everything is working.
So thank you everyone once again for being here today, and for taking your time to, let's say, learn something more about ESCO. Just to say at the beginning, yes, my name is Valentina Grganovic, and I'm responsible for the stakeholders engagement and communication inside the ESCO project. Also, usually, what I like to start with when I explain a lot about ESCO is that actually I can completely understand from the very beginning that it can be a lot of information. It's a big classification, also understanding all the little specificities about it can be maybe challenging at the beginning, but I can assure you that I will try to do my best to go into details that are important for your specific use case, what Elena was just explaining, so mostly for vet curricula. For this case, I would prefer if you can keep the questions, maybe write them down, or in the chat. I'm not going to see them for now, but we can discuss them at the end, as maybe some things can be challenging while I'm presenting, but then they will be clarified later on. So let's start to see what will be the agenda. So I will give a general introduction about the European classification of skills, competences, qualifications, and occupations. Then just to understand a bit, how do we update and maintain the classification, and which is the current version. I will explain what are the most important ESCO use cases, but with a focus on education and training sector. So how can ESCO benefit you? And we'll present one of our tools that links qualifications and learning outcomes of qualifications to ESCO skills. So bear with me. Basically, to start, let's just try to understand what is actually ESCO. We can imagine it as a dictionary that is trying to describe, identify, and classify all professional occupations, skills, and competences that are relevant at this moment at the EU labor market, and as well at the education and training sector. You will understand later how do we try to make this balance. So what are the three main reasons, let's say, when we started to think about why we need one European classification of skills and occupations? Is firstly to encourage the intra-European mobility. So to have, for example, people who want to maybe work in different EU countries so that it's easier for them to move. Also very important to align the skills with the industry needs. So we need to understand what are the differences in these and bridge, let's say, this world of education and employment, very important in your case as well. And to have different kind of analysis or metadata, let's say, on skills-based services. So we need this common language that will allow us to analyze better what is there today at the European labor market. So what does it consist of? The structure of ESCO, so we have two pillars. We have the pillar of occupations and pillar of skills. Even though before ESCO had also the pillar of qualifications, they are now presented in Europass, and luckily later you will have other colleagues as well speaking a bit more about that. But just for your information, today I'm focusing only on this pillar of skills and pillar of occupations as it is today in ESCO. So let's see what do we have today in ESCO. So in the occupation pillar, we have a little bit more than 3,000 occupations. And on the sides of skills, we have almost 14,000 skills and competences. Each of the profiles, so we call them profiles, can offer you a lot of information, and they can be useful for different use cases, of course. So for example, in the case of occupations, you will find, let's say, the title, the description, there is a code as well. Alternative label means just a synonym for the same title. You can find regulatory aspects as well for different occupations. And what is one of the most important aspects of ESCO, other than being in 28 languages, is that we offer this relation between our two pillars. So for every occupation, you will find what are the essential and optional skills and knowledge for that occupation. Also, we have a hierarchy for both of the pillars, but I don't think now going too much into details about it is needed. But for example, the occupation hierarchy is built on ESCO 08, which is international classification made by ILO. Let's see what we have in the skills pillar. So the skills pillar is divided into four, let's say, lower hierarchies. So we have skills, we have transversal skills, knowledge, and language. Um, and let's say information is almost the same if you open one of the profiles. So here we have apply for research funding. So you have the title, you have the description, alternative labels, and in the skills we add a bit more information. So we have as well reusability level, which just indicates how widely this knowledge or skill or competence can be applied. And what Elena was also saying at the beginning, we also have important part, which are the labels. And those are green, digital, and research at this moment in ESCO. I will later explain a bit more about that as well. And for the skills pillar as well, we have relations. So you can see, apologies. So you can see for each skill that you can see a broader concept. So if there is another skill that is broader than that one, and you can see always for which occupations this skill is essential or this skill is optional. And as well, all of these are translated in 28 languages, as I described before. One maybe interesting point for you, because I think we have people from different countries, so different languages. Um, Alternative labels. So everything that we do in ESCO is, of course, based on the language that is used in the labor market and education and training worlds. What does that mean? So, for example, the title as well, but especially alternative labels, are based on the language that is used in OGVs, in CVs. So that means that, for example, apply for research funding can have four alternative labels in English, but maybe in Italian or Spanish or other language, you will see more or less of these alternative labels because they are basically synonyms. So if you will be working with more data and you will see maybe these different numbers in alternative labels, it is due to the fact that in some countries, or maybe you can have abbreviations. So it really differs by the language that is used. So when I was speaking about hierarchy, this is just a bit to explain. The occupation pillars has firstly four groups that are the ISCO groups, and then at the end we go to ESCO occupations, everything that is below the fourth group. And that means that all the information that I was just explaining, so connected skills and alternative labels, you will find from that fifth level, so from ESCO occupations. For ISCO, we are basically taking it as to build our own hierarchy. The skills pillar is basically the same, but we only have three groups. And then for the fourth level, you will see ESCO skills. And this is built by the professionals, by the experts that were building ESCO at the very beginning. In the future, we are now as well thinking about another alternative visualization and the hierarchy, because we are trying to make it a bit more user-friendly, let's say, for other use cases, but this is something that will be coming in the next years. So when we speak about translation, so one of the most important aspects of ESCO is, as I said, that it's available in 28 languages, out of which 24 are EU languages, but as well you have 4 non-EU languages, which are Icelandic, Norwegian, Arabic, and Ukrainian. This proved very useful, especially for cases where there were, for example, tools that were trying to align and see the skills from people who were coming, let's say, from Ukraine during the war, or later that they were just trying to change and to see what are theirs to translate their skills in the EU labor market. Speaking about the collections, so the European Union, of course, is pursuing the ambitious goal of achieving the climate neutrality by 2050. I believe with your projects as well, you are very much aware of this. So basically to transform the economy for sustainable future, also member states plan to stimulate the creation of green jobs and to continue basically cutting greenhouse gas emissions. So following all of this as well, ESCO tried to see which of the skills and knowledge concepts can be labeled as green. So right now in the current version, we have 478 ESCO skills and knowledge concepts that are labeled as green. And we as well try to, as the European Commission is as well determined to close the digital skills gap and to support different initiatives and plans to raise the standard of digital literacy in Europe. So we as well have the labels for digital skills. And right now there are 1,276. In our portal, you can find all the details on how did we take out from these 14,000 skills to have almost 600 green ones. So we used a combined approach between using data science models and of course human labeling and validation. So you have more details on which models have been used, but this is, I would say, the most important information for you. We can check just a few examples. For example, for the green, these are some of the green skills. So maybe very important urban planning law, train staff to reduce food waste and design biomass installations. So these are the kind of skills that we tagged as green. One of the very important questions that we often receive is how can we see the same data that we see on the portal, maybe in our own systems? So ESCO is published as linked open data, so it's available to everyone. It is free. And we offer different possibilities because, of course, we have really various use cases where ESCO can be applied. At the moment, there are two possibilities. So ESCO can be downloaded with the files. I will show later, and we have three options. So TTL, ODS, and CSV, and as well, you can use the ESCO API. These are more, let's say, for bigger systems. And there is web service API and the local one. I believe that from my experience by now, in the web sphere, usually the stakeholders use or the portal or the files, depending, of course, on the use case. So as I said at the beginning, a lot of information about ESCO can be challenging, but I as well know that once our stakeholders as well download the files, they as well see it as a challenge. So let's see what is there. So basically, once you download the ESCO data, you will receive 16 files, different files. For example, here the exam is in English, but you can choose different packages. You can at the same time download 5 languages, let's say. Why did we decide to put it in files like this? As I said before, we have really diverse use cases. So there can be organizations that would like to focus only to green skills or only to transversal skills. So we offer the possibility to have this flexibility and as well to customize the data. And as well, which we can discuss as well later, depending on each use case in your organizations. What we see often is that it is using ESCO like this, it's easier to adjust the data. So for example, if you would have courses that are focusing just on architecture, for you would be easier to add or remove the data that you need. So you can use as well ESCO as a basis for your own work. And then depending on your needs and your project goals, you can build on it, or you maybe in some aspects ESCO is not too much detailed, or in others is too detailed. So you can take it as a starting point, let's say, that offers you a lot of information, and then build on it. And finally, as I said, ESCO APA, yeah, basically it is mostly for the bigger users that are, let's say, creating different systems that can be, for example, to analyze, to have some workforce analytics, to train AI models, especially a lot of recommender systems for skills and job roles. So they're mostly using the web service. But the local APA, of course, offers a bit more control over the data, and it's as well easy to use and download. So that is for the starting point, to have a broader overview. Two things just to underline again. So we are trying to focus on the whole European labor market and the training and education sector, and we have two pillars as a conclusion. So now let's see why is it important and how is ESCO updated. So why do we need continuous improvement of ESCO? I think it's also something that you are discussing in your systems. One of the most important thing is the labor market is all the time developing, constantly evolving. So we will also constantly see new occupations and new skills emerging. And it is in response to different reasons. So it can be technological, societal, or economical changes. At the same time, we can see some occupations, let's say, disappearing, or as we say in the language of ESCO, that are becoming obsolete, as well due to industries changes. Other than the labor market, of course, there you can as well let me know, there are a lot of changes in curricula. So as well, the education and training programs are frequently updated, and they also try to align, I believe, with the latest industry standards and of course the emerging trends in the education sector. And that means, again, that we have new knowledge, new skills, new competences that need to be introduced. Let's think about maybe one example, coding languages like Python might replace like older ones in IT training sector, or sustainability principles may become central in some of the engineering courses. So I believe you were not seeing that before. Now we see them. So ESCO as well needs to capture these updates, these changes, and to ensure that there is an alignment basically between the education training and the labor market. One other thing that is important is the changes of the terminology. That's why I was saying that it's very important to understand that ESCO translations are not pure, let's say, translations. We are really trying to use the language of the labor market, and that terminology as well can be developing, and it can be due to different labor market updates, regional preferences, or as well industry standards. So there is an example of today, mostly we use webmaster, while before it was something that was referred as web developer. So the more modern terminologies are used. And finally, as we know, IT systems and applications are all the time developing. So we are also trying, as technology evolves and the way in which information is accessed and shared and used, we also need to, in ESCO, to try to follow these demands, and also update how we offer to access to the data, so that the integration is easier for the users. Let's move on to understand which are the types of ESCO updates, very important for you as well. So in ESCO, we have two types of updates. There are the major ones and the minor ones. What I would say as a main difference always to remember is in the major, we change the numbers in both of the pillars. So you will see the change in the number of occupations and skills. So it can be that some are deleted or made obsolete and some are added. With the minor updates, there is no change in the number of occupations and skills. Of course, there is much more to that. So let's check. In the major updates, as I say, so we have new content, but we also have the quality review of the existing classification. So this can be at the concept level, also requires updates of the mapping tables, and of course, very long work is needed. On the side of the minor updates, we only have quality review. There is no additional content. So there is, for example, a change in the concept relations, or we analyze the translations that are done. Very often in ESCO, we can see typos as well. So or minor changes where we need to add alternative labels. So it's everything about the quality of the actual content. As I said, this is a big work. We have almost 14,000 skills and 3,000 occupations. So you, I guess, wonder on how do we do that. Historically, as I said, ESCO was an expert-driven classification. So the hierarchy and all the start was made by different expert groups. But today, of course, we try to be faster with our updates. We try to follow as well closer the labor market and education sector to see what is happening. So we use different AI models, which are based mostly on statistical analysis, data science, and machine learning. And where do we use these models is basically to maintain the classification, so that is more efficient, to expand the classification. So if we see that there are new knowledges or skills, and we try to build different tools that are making the use of ESCO for our implementers easier. You will understand as well this in the last part. So what is the current version? We published it in May 2024, so just recently, and it is a major version. So we added some new concepts. You can see around 273 of them were added, but there was a lot of work as well on the quality. For example, we were analyzing if there are some skills and knowledges that are very, very close. So we say if there are some duplicates. So there's a lot of as well quality work. We were focusing mostly on twin transition and emerging technologies. So we were adding occupations and skills that are from these sectors. Also, in our methodology, we are using these AI techniques, as I explained before. And there is a lot of collaboration with sectoral experts on suggesting new occupations and skills that need to be added. So let's see how all of this is happening. So this was the methodology for the latest update. So as a first step, we have a lot of input, of course. And the input can come, of course, still from the experts. That means that there are different blueprint projects or just organizations that are focusing on specific sector or specific topic that are analyzing or occupations or skills from that sector and are providing input to ESCO, maybe that some new skills need to be added, or for one occupation we should add more essential or optional skills. We also try to analyze what is happening at the national level. So let's say if France recently have updated their national classification of occupations or skills, we also try to see what are the differences. Online job skills. Also, we are very much connected with Europass. So we analyze, for example, the profiles of Europass users. This is interesting because, for example, I don't know if you used recently Europass, but you have a part where you can add your skills. So a lot of skills that are suggested are from ESCO, because I believe in your case as well, and I can say in mine, when we build our CVs, sometimes we forget, or maybe your students as well can forget some skills that are actually connected to what they are doing. So you have suggested skills, so we can see as well which skills are from ESCO are added. But at the same time, user can type their own skill if the suggested ones are not matching. And this way we analyze, okay, if a lot of users are using this skill, we should think about as well adding it in ESCO. And then later we have the steps to analyze if this skill is as well used in the online job vacancies and validation from the member states and so on. So other than that, we use also data from courses and learning outcomes, and we have a desk research from our team. The second step is, of course, to process all this data using our AI models. So we cluster all the information, we have the scores, we analyze, and then we have the manual validation of these results. So we are drafting the validation, we have terminological rules. For example, for the skills, we are using verbs for knowledge is know, so everything needs to follow our rules as well. And then we have the quality review and to draft finally the new concepts or the quality updates. And this is very important step where we put outside, let's say, where we ask for feedback from experts and stakeholders. So there was a period where you could download all these new suggested occupations and skills, and you can see if you agree or no. And the final review, very important. That's why often stakeholders ask, why does ESCO need so much time for in between major versions? Of course, we have the validation from the member states and we have the translation. So everything that is drafted needs to be as well translated and needs to be consulted with the member states, as well as we do with stakeholders, the member state, considering, because we have the governance group as well, with all public employment services, considering that they know this language of the labor market. They have experts in their offices as well. They check if the new concepts are really speaking that language. So yeah, this is that long process that you can see. And now let's move maybe to some a bit easier topic. I will take a bit water. So let's see how ESCO can be used, or what are the current use cases. As I said, we have different use cases. So one of the most important is that ESCO is trying to bridge this, create the bridge between education and training sector and labor market by making skills and qualification visible and comparable at the EU level. Another, as I said, it was one of the incentives of creating ESCO is to connect people to jobs, to improve different kind of e-services that are using ESCO to develop their labor market. So for example, it can be at the public sector or the private one, which means that also it saves a lot of time and reduce cost. For these systems, here one of the most important examples is EURES. I believe you're familiar with it. Then as well, ESCO can be used for big data analysis. As I said before, you can see different trends, for example, which skills are in demand or which occupations as well. And to train different models, whether for statistical research or just for machine learning. Let's focus on creating this bridge, let's say. between the labor market and education and training systems. So what would be the reasons why educational providers can benefit from ESCO? So first of all, ESCO can support the shift to learning outcomes. Why? Because we all know that other than the actual description of the course, the learning outcomes are commonly defined in terms of knowledge, skills, and competences, and therefore they share the same terminology like ESCO. And this shared terminology can facilitate dialogue, so between the labor market and education training stakeholders, and what is really important, within the borders and within the sectors, because ESCO is available in different languages. Also, another aspect is that ESCO can achieve to achieve the transparency and comparability with other member states. As well, again, we speak about the possibility to that ESCO is multilingual, because why when displaying the data about qualification from member states in a unique and structured format, ESCO promotes the increased understanding and transparency of information available at the EU level, and in return, this makes data about qualifications comparable as well at the European level, and allows people to make more informed choices. This means that the language that is used in describing the qualifications as well can help to compare what is happening in other courses that are similar in other countries. And finally, to understand the development of emerging skills in an international context. So as I said, it's not just that ESCO can be used because of the languages that we have. You also can compare what is happening other than outside the EU. And to adapt the educational curricula to labor market needs. Other important aspects, I would say, we also can understand what are the emerging skills that are growing a bit more in this international context. So this is the what I was explaining before as well, when we analyze, okay, also the courses and that you create, the qualifications, the training offers that you create are also allowing ESCO to understand what is happening. And the last point is this one, to speak the same language as employers. So on one side, we have the employers who are trying to understand how much the candidate is suitable for the position that they have, and they are basing it very often, if it's a starting position, on their qualifications. But employers, of course, in their job vacancies, they maybe use a more language of skills, which is more detailed. And on the other side, education system are giving this feedback to labor market needs and can help to identify skill gaps, and they can as well adapt the curricula, the qualifications accordingly. So if you see that some skills are emerging at the labor market as well, the curricula needs to be developed. So at the end of the day, what is the most important is that the people entering the labor market are able to explain their own skills and competences, but that are as well matched with what they learned and what is searched at the job market. We have as well, of course, our list of users of ESCO, and we can see that educational providers are at the third place, let's say, and mostly are universities, vocational training centers, e-learning platforms, and as I said before, using ESCO to develop curricula, to describe learning outcomes, and to issue digital credentials. So here are just some examples of these educational providers that are using ESCO in their systems. You have different universities. Also, sometimes we have universities that are focused just on very specific topics like digital and green skills. Or there was one example from Italy, where they were trying to see using ESCO to match student skills with the requirements that are requested in internships. So the first step, I would say, for many students, and they wanted, because of the multilingual aspect of ESCO, to overcome the language barrier when they were describing their own skills and competences, and also to really align what students are learning with the industry standards. I will not go a lot into details on these aspects, but yeah, just for you to understand, yeah, this is one of the most important use cases of ESCO to match people with jobs, because ESCO is building this as well bridge in that case to support labor mobility, especially inside the Eures countries, and is acting as a digital, let's say, facilitator, and it's improving different e-services to match people other than Eures at the national level. Like here in Ireland, we have a lot implementation. Also, why is it important? Because member states or different private sector, big companies that are building their platforms are using ESCO because we also had a valuation survey because they trust it, because it is updated by the European Commission. It can help them, of course, to save on costs, and they have accurate information on what is happening today at the European labor market and training sector. And in that way, they have skills-based matching with people with jobs. And finally, ESCO for labor market analysis. This is also very interesting, how our multilingual data can be used. So basically to collect and aggregate and interpret the data across language barriers and IT systems and countries. So this creates interoperability with other data sources. Here is an example of one project from CEDEFOP. I believe you are familiar with the EU agency. And they are analyzing the demand of different occupations at the EU level. They are analyzing a lot of online job vacancies. But there was an example also from Croatia, from my country, where they were using ESCO to see which occupations and skills are in demand, divided by region, and so they were then developing their own curricula based on that. Final aspect, I believe we are just on time, is to understand, when I was saying that we use AI models as well to help our users to use ESCO. So for example, at the member states level, at PES level, we have different tools as well that help them match their own classifications with ESCO, because they are obliged by the US regulation. But as well, we in the training sector, in the education sector, we are developing a tool that is linking the qualifications to skills. So why is it important to link these two? I believe you are very familiar. Basically, again, to create this bridge, but also to analyze which skills and identify are related to particular qualification. So then later you can, for example, analyze that there are matches or mismatches in the sector or in the occupation. So what is used in the online job vacancies. Also can help the qualifications more transparent across Europe because of the multilingual aspect, and demonstrates how ESCO can be used to enrich as well the description of educational curricula. So this is very important. Translation, comparison, or review, of course, again, in between maybe member states or in between regions. And the final aspect, of course, reduces a lot of costs for you as well, and the resources that you would need to perform these activities, to analyze from one training request, so one training description, which actually skills are needed. So which are the users of this kind of tool? Mostly employers, training providers, and educational sector institutions that want to understand more the labor market and then value their qualification. And of course, the individuals. So let's think maybe about the students who want to analyze, okay, if this is the course that I want to take, which of the skills I can put later on my CV. Because as I said before, many of the companies or big job boards are matching based on the skills. So later using the language of skills is also easier for them. And also they can maybe just enrich the qualification information. So to create this language, we in ESCO created a learning outcome linking platform. It was a pilot that was going in 3 phases. Started in 2019 and the last one was in 2023, I believe. So we were testing this approach where you need to add your qualifications and the AI model would divide them on learning outcomes. And after the learning outcomes, for each one of them, they were suggested ESCO skills. Participants were from member states, social partners. Also, I don't know if you're familiar with the European Training Foundation and many private training providers, which were sharing their data, so their qualifications or the descriptions of courses, and they were seeing if the model was giving the right results. So in these 3 phases, we were testing this pilot and to see if the suggested skills and knowledge concepts are right. I put in this slide as well all the detailed information about each pilot. So basically what would be the next steps? The European Commission is planning to have this as an open source, so it would be called Open Access Mapping Platform, where all of the users can just input the text and as I said before, the text will firstly be divided into learning outcomes. So for example, in this case, you have 4 learning outcomes, and inside each learning outcome, you would see 10 suggested ESCO skills, or you can choose as well, or 15. And you can tag them and you can as well learn more about them and go to the ESCO portal. And at the end, you can download the file. At the same time, the linking platform will as well remain available, but it is used for really big, for users who have, for our stakeholders who have big data, large number of qualifications, so they prefer to work maybe with a tool, while in this open access mapping tool, you will be able to download as well the data at the end, and it's, let's say, one-time project. You can also return later when you finish with it, and it allows you to also work in different languages. So this is one of the very important aspects when we speak with the vet providers on how can ESCO be useful, because it can be sometimes too detailed, too hard to understand. So this is one of the aspects where you will be able to add your description of the course and see maybe, okay, some skills are missing. Maybe my learning outcome can be a bit more detailed with skills, because we need to as well think about the students who are later, after finishing the course, we need to translate that into proper skills and knowledge concepts. So this is also really offering a good opportunity for everyone. I think I am just on time. If I see well the timing ticking on my side. We can have some questions. I hope I was not going too fast. I hope some things are more clear. And we can start with the discussion.
Thank you, Valentina, for this very comprehensive presentation of the ESCO database. It's really a multi-phased tool because I was used to check and to extract some information, but this last part is really very, very important also while we reflect all together on how, let's say, improve and innovate our curricula, starting from the descriptors we are going to use for the development of the different learning outcomes and connect the skill, knowledge, skills, and competencies. You are perfectly on time. So if any participant has questions regarding the ESCO database, I think we can have some minutes. So you can open your microphone or you can write in the chat. So I think Lara Porciatti, Lara, please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity, for the really interesting presentation. I would like to share the experience since I represent ARTER, that is the Regional Development Agency of Emilia-Romagna region, Italy. Since 2019, we are running a project on skills intelligence and using ESCO taxonomy classification, and in order to to study the labor market trends in our region. We do this with many stakeholders that represent the company, the providers, university, and so on. And we use the different source of data that we connect to ESCO classification. We have the online job vacancy. We work with the Lightcast, that you might know because they work also with the CEDEFOP, ATF, and the administrative data that comes from the regional agency. So we have different sources of data. Our main challenge in developing this tool is that ESCO and the Italian national classification are not completely aligned. And working with different sources of data, we see that there are always obstacles in order to really make the potential, not to have the potential, completed potential of the data. At least from a point of view of the analysis. And the other main challenge is that you already highlight is that while working with the companies, especially with companies actually, because with web providers it's easier, but with companies it's not so easy to let them understand that the taxonomy cannot be like the language of company in terms of classification of skills. And whenever we present the occupation and skills that comes from a standard classification, there is sort of, we don't understand why you are talking about this and it's not aligned and so on. So we do this at the regional level in order to make the classification and all the analysis to have an apply on the ground. So I would like to share this, and I'm very curious about the cases you mentioned. Maybe if we have the opportunity to be in contact, because our main objective in this project is to really align the educational offer in our region and the labor market needs. So this would be very, very interesting for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lara. That's very interesting. Definitely, you can. You have also here the email, but I can as well text you my one, and you can present. We can have a meeting, and we would be really interested to hear. Also, I know that in Emilia-Romagna they were doing as well the analysis of green jobs. I think it was with Ampal, and they were developing using ESCO green skills to develop the analysis on green jobs. But just to go back to this challenge, it's very interesting what you said, that this, let's say, non-alignment between the national and ESCO. This is very important when we try to explain as well that ESCO is the European classification of skills and competences. And what does that mean? So I heard before that we had some colleagues as well from Finland, So we in ESCO, we need to try to capture everything that is happening in Italy and in Finland, in Spain, and in Estonia. That means that, for example, some occupations, let's think about pizzaiolo or wine industry occupations. In Italy, of course, will be very detailed, will be very important, maybe even divided in more levels. While in Finland, they will not have so much focus maybe on these occupations, but will be focused on something else. So this is as well the challenge in ESCO, because we need to make this this balance of the European labor market and training. And this is where you will see that some things are a bit more detailed, some less. And that is where I'm very happy to hear that you took the classification, but then as well connected it what is happening at the national level. And also, I didn't go in many details, but you can as well find about it on our portal. We have these mapping tables between the national classification and ESCO, where they needed to do the match. So if some of you would be interested in that. And yeah, the difference is the taxonomy that is used at the level of companies. Yeah, this is what we see a lot as well, that sometimes, and especially at the level of the web providers, is that the descriptions are very broad. So the person will be able to learn this and that. So the language that is used is more, of course, connected with the training sector, while in the companies it's very strict, you know. So it's skill needed, this and that. So it's also when we train our AI models and when we need to analyze and separate, it's very also important how training courses are written. So if it's in big descriptions, so it's harder for the models to also analyze, to firstly divide them in specific lines, then to learn to see what is the actual skill that is described there, because that sometimes they can be too broad. So, and another problem that we see as well at the side of the labor market is this today, that occupations are really having different names. For one same occupation, you can see really sometimes the same company can publish the one occupation in different names just to have even more clicks, things like this. So it's today there are many more challenges. So that's why it is important to try then maybe to link at the level of skills, not just on the name of the occupation. So to see, okay, what is the description of this, and what is the description at the level of training. And yeah, for the last point, definitely you can contact us, and let's see if you have some bigger projects. What we have, we can try to help.
Any other question for Valentina?
Hello.
Please, Ari.
I'm working
hello,
in the
hello.
Exit
Nice
project
to see you.
with the
Please.
nice to see you as well. I'm working in the Exit project with these themes. So what I would like to ask is, are you going to add more like a cooperation with CDFOps, the online job advertisement tool with the ESCO database? As I think it would be highly beneficial if we could see or link directly between the ESCO digits, the different skills that are in rise or are now in demand in green or digital side.
ESCO is already part of the CDFO project, so 08. So they're already using ESCO inside that project. But as well, one interesting aspect you have is in the Europass page. In the Europass page as well, you have these job and skill trends, where they're connecting both the OVATE project and ESCO data. So you can see, if I'm not wrong, you can see the top 10 skills for each occupation and top knowledge groups, so you can have some information. And then what is interesting, you can see by country. So you can choose a country and you can see today what are the top 10 occupations. And they are developing this tool all the time, so I don't know. So you have different information that you can see. Okay, here you can see both country and the tool and the occupation. Yeah, so I'm not with the completely familiar, but you have already some of these tools, and in OVATE it is already used. ESCO.
Okay, thank you. I haven't
Yeah,
seen this one before,
yeah.
so it's
I can maybe put the link in the.
yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm not able to put it in the chat, but okay, I
Okay.
need to ask a question. Okay.
So last question, if any. No? Okay, so in case, send your question to us and we will contact again Valentina. Thank you very much for this very interesting session, really, really very interesting. So
I
thank
will
you very much
just
for your...
add as well the newsletter subscription, so you can as well
Yeah.
you can subscribe, because there we also publish when this tool will be as well online, so you can be aware of it.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you,
So we
everyone.
stay updated. Thank you very much. And we will stay in contact for further, let's say, deepening opportunities. Have a good day, Valentina. Bye. So, second block of the day, we will have connected Mrs. Isabel Ladrón Arroyo from the European Commission. As I said at the very beginning of the meeting today, she will guide us in exploring which are the main policies of the European Commission while when it comes to discuss about skills development. So we will explore with her this aspect, very interesting, and also we will have a focus on micro-credential for learning initiatives. You know that under the framework of the EXCEED project, we are going to test together with the partners, associated partners, but also regional administration and national administration involved on the EXCEED platform, this release of micro-credentials for learning. At the end of this upskilling program, for vet professionals, we will release micro-credentials for learning to every one of us. So, Isabel, please, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. Thanks a lot for the introduction.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for
thank
joining.
You. Indeed, thank you very much to yourself for the invitation. I'm happy to be here and above considering your role as training providers and as educator and training specialist. Yeah, I am Isabel. I work at the European Commission and I'm the policy officer who covers the file of micro-credentials. So indeed, what I will do is like to first of all give a little bit of context of, like before saying what is the European approach to micro-credentials and what is that the EU is doing regarding that and what can be useful for you, to put this in a broader context of the EU skills development policy. So first of all, there is like big efforts from the European Union being done towards inviting people to engage in lifelong learning, in this idea of like upskilling and reskilling all throughout your life. Basically, the idea is that, as you know very well, like engaging in education and training when you are young and then already go to your career and that's it, is not anymore enough because of like the rapid change of the labor market, but also of societies. So to achieve a sustainable competitiveness, but also social fairness, making sure that no one is left behind in these changes, and a strong resilience, that is to say, like the capacity to adapt to whatever comes, like we've seen it, for example, with the COVID-19 pandemic. we need a society that, like, we need to mainstream this mindset of lifelong learning. This is like the overall goal, so to speak, of what we call the European Skills Agenda. That is like the framework for skills development in the EU that is running until 2025, but that the new push is coming with a new commission for skills development. So in that sense, with the new commission, there is a whole continuation, even like a further push of like these initiatives. And just to give that in numbers, like this ambition that I'm describing of the European Commission regarding the skills development, there is 3 related targets to achieve by 2030. The first one belongs to the Porto targets, like so the social targets around the European pillar of social plans, European pillar of social rights action plan. And is that we aim at having at least 60% of adult population participating in training every year. This is what we mean by mainstreaming lifelong learning and mainstreaming upskilling and reskilling, that 6 in 10 people every year engage in training. Then the other 2 targets are related specifically to digital skills. The first one has to do with basic digital skills, and the idea is that 80% of Europeans have at least basic digital skills, and that's fundamental for the labor market, but also for inclusion in society, because like the more and more services like online banking, but also access to social security and other kind of service will take place or are already taking place online, and lacking these basic digital skills means also a risk of social exclusion in general, and of course in the labor market. And then the last target is more related, if you want, to competitiveness, because it has to do with advanced digital skills. So the European labor market need like the absolute figure of 20 million ICT specialists. At the moment, we are around 10 million. So the thing is like to really encourage people to get into these, what we call STEAM, right? Like these ICT related professions. And this goal has also a component of gender convergence, because this is very male dominated and is a lack of opportunity, like not to leverage, of course, on the female workforce, but also for women not to take advantage of these job opportunities where there is a huge demand. So more specifically about micro-credentials, like how do they step in here? They step in as a tool for boosting this lifelong learning, for boosting this engaging in upskilling and reskilling. And that's why I thought it was important to give, first of all, the initial framework. As you know, like micro-credentials are like small training opportunities that get certified afterwards. So actually the micro-credential, it is the credential, like the record of the learning outcome of this small volume of learning, right? Like that can be, for example, a short training. That should be targeted, relevant, like small, as we said, and flexible and fit to how people live, learn, and work. So that's a bit the overall characteristics of micro-credentials. And an important thing to say is that they've been like mushrooming all around in recent years, and they are there on their own, so to speak. Like they happen, they are labor market driven, and many actors are like issuing micro-credentials. So why the European Commission is stepping in, or like the European Union is stepping in? The idea is indeed to put some order in this whole panorama, in this whole environment of micro-credentials, to make them more understandable and comparable. And that's how in June 2022, the Council adopted a recommendation that the title is a recommendation on a European approach to micro-credentials for lifelong learning and employability. So basically what I will try to present here is like, what is this European approach? As I said, the rationale behind is like to boost quality of micro-credentials, trust and uptake indeed, and to make them like those micro-credentials that many people or many stakeholders are issuing and designing and delivering, to make them more comparable and understandable, like what it is, how does this relate to a qualification, for example, also for learners, like where can I go further with this credential, what does it mean? And also for employers, for example, like what does it mean that this person has a micro-credential, what are the skills that they have? So that's the whole idea, right? The next slide is an overview, like it's a bit dense, but that would be like a broad overview of the content of the Council recommendation, that I'm not sure whether you are familiar with it, but it might be useful to take a look at it together. So first of all, What are the building blocks of the recommendation? What is the contribution of this European approach? It, for the first time, proposed a common definition of micro-credentials, because that's also something like not to take for granted, so to speak. Like to understand each other, we need to see what do we understand as a micro-credential. Then it defines a number of standard elements to include in the micro-credential to describe it. We will go more in detail afterwards on that. And finally, it also proposed what are the principles that one should follow when designing an issue in a micro-credential. So to some extent, these building blocks are quite operational, even if it's like a policy document addressed to member states. Then it established like 3 key areas for action. One is the development of ecosystems for micro-credentials, so to create quality assurance mechanisms, to engage all the necessary stakeholders, and so on and so forth. Then there is a part on delivering on the potential of micro-credentials and on what the Commission can do for supporting the implementation of the Council recommendation. And finally, something that is also quite interesting is that the scope of the recommendation is quite broad, as it focuses on both education and training and skills policies. And then, for example, it would be the part for higher education or for vocational education and training. But it's also related on active labor market policies. So like labor market actors that are straight away involved in the delivering of micro-credentials or like in promoting them. So that's the overall overview of the Council recommendation. And I will go now quickly through one of the, through each of the 3 building blocks of the Council recommendation. So the definition, the standard elements, and the principles, just to make it a bit more concrete of like, what is that you will find in this policy document, right? Like in this Council recommendation. So first of all, the common definition for micro-credentials, it says that the micro-credential is not the training course. I mean, even if we normally refer to a training to a short training course as a micro-credential, but the whole point with that is that it is the record of the learning outcome of this training course, if you want. And actually, this training course doesn't need to be a course itself, like that it's the most popular way, of course, but it can also be, for example, like micro-credentials can be used for the recognition of informal and non-formal learning or of prior learning experiences. So that would be also a micro-credential in the end. It's like something like the credential that record the learning outcome of a small volume of learning that you have acquired in many different contexts. The thing is that this learning outcome needs to be assessed. The micro-credential will be owned by the learner. That is to say that the learner can like carry it around and show it to someone else when it is of their interest, so that they can be shared and portable. And they can be standalone. They should have the value on themselves, but they can potentially be also combined, for example, into a bigger degree or into a bigger qualification, for example, but that's not necessarily is a possibility, and they should be underpinned by quality assurance. That's how the Council recommendation defines micro-credentials. And then in the Annex 1 of the Council recommendation, there is a list of the standard elements that a micro-credential should include to be to describe the content of the micro-credential. So this, that sounds a bit abstract, being very concrete, is like, what are these standard elements? So first of all, identification of the learner. Secondly, what is the title of the micro-credential? What is, for example, the country or the region of the issuer? What is, for example, like just I'm going here and there, the notional workload needed to achieve this learning outcome, because we said that it is focused on the learning outcome, but okay, we can also put for describing the micro-credential, the notional workload. So for example, in higher education, there is this standardized system of ECTS. Is it compulsory to use ECTS? No, because not in, as we said, like the scope is very broad. This does not only apply to higher education, and it won't be in every context possible to use ECTS. But what is the whole logic of that is like, when there is something that already exists and that you can refer to an already existing framework, let's use it. When it's not possible, it's fine. Like, let's describe it somehow else. But if we already have a system in place that you can refer to and that you can use it, the idea is to use it so that those micro-credentials can be understood and can be compared. to the extent possible. So that's a little bit the idea, right? Like a different one would be, okay, describe the type of assessment, describe the quality assurance used to underpin the micro-credential, and so on and so forth. So that's regarding the standard elements. And thirdly, those are the principles that are established in the Council recommendation for design and issuance of a micro-credential, for the designs and the issuance. So those principles are, for example, quality, transparency, relevance, a valid assessment, as we said. And one that I would like to focus here, like not to be too long, it's, for example, the idea that micro-credentials, when designing them, we should keep in mind the learner in the center, because the whole thing is that that's a possibility, because of micro-credential is flexible and is targeted, right? That you can do it a bit your way, and you can consider the characteristic of a certain type of learner that maybe traditional training and education systems cannot afford to do it. So here is very important if we wanna tap on the potential of micro-credentials, for example, for social inclusion, that we leverage on this principle of like they should be learner-centered, so that those micro-credentials can adapt to the reality of the learners, and therefore, and now I go to my first slides, boost the engagement into lifelong learning and into upskilling and reskilling of workers, above all of those who are now like farther away from this mindset of lifelong learning. So that regarding the content. In this slide is just to present that there has been a lot of research done on micro-credentials, mostly by CEDEFOP, that is the EU agency for research in VET, by ETF, that was already mentioned in the previous presentation, and also by the OECD. So I will just leave it here in cases of your interest. You know that there is a lot of research done, specifically also by CEDEFOP linked to VET. And maybe at a very operational level, the ETF issued in 2023 a guide to design, issue, and recognize micro-credentials. That is a little bit the elaboration of like these principles, like this Annex 2 of the Council recommendation. So that can be quite useful. And this is just to present what is the job that the European Commission is doing at the moment when it comes to micro-credentials. First of all, we launched a survey this summer to member states to check on the level, on the state of implementation of the Council recommendation across member states. So at the moment, we are working on doing the analysis of this data, and we will soon have a report that we have a lot of hopes on it, because in a way it's like a very comprehensive overview of like what's going on at the member state level, because as you know, that's like all that has to do with education and training. The EU only have support competencies, so in the end, like any type of like hard regulation can only come from a member states or even regions. So the whole idea of like this effort of the Council recommendation is to try to propose a European approach, like a common way of doing things, so that then every national initiative can be comparable and like easy to transfer and so. Then there are also some funds put through Erasmus Plus projects. At the moment, there are 12 Erasmus Plus forward-looking projects running on micro-credentials. And there is also some projects that have just been selected under the policy experimentation call. So they will start soon and run for other 3 years. And then another thing that we do from the Commission to support the implementation of the Council recommendation is to organize peer learning activities where we invite member states and like the relevant authorities within member states to share experiences between them and to see what they are doing and to learn from each other. So we had one in January this year, already almost a year ago, that we jointly organized with CEDEFOP, and there we had a focus on a sectoral approach on manufacturing and retail. And we had another one in May this year that was about building trust on micro-credentials in this context available where there is like non-formal learning and like there is not, for example, a prestigious education or training institution backing up the credibility of the micro-credentials. So what are alternative ways to build trust on micro-credentials? I'm already about to finish. This is just to show, as I announced in the beginning, that there is a new push for skills It is part of like one of the vice president's portfolio of the commission. And they're announced already in these mission letters a union of skills and a skills portability initiative, and as well a new strategy for vocational education and training. And if all those strategies are somehow related to micro-credentials. So let's see, like, I mean, we cannot confirm now, but like they will keep being very high in the agenda. So it's very nice when projects like yours and like the Cove keep working on implementing it on the ground and working around it. And finally, like that's a slide I used to include, but actually in this training, you had the luxury of like having it way more detailed, that there is some useful tools developed also in the European Union that can be very useful at an operational level to implement micro-credentials. So one is the European Digital Credentials for Learning, that it is like a tool, literally a digital tool to issue credentials on anything that can be, for example, a qualification, but also a micro-credential, and it will be already in line with the European approach to micro-credentials. And this tool is based on the European learning model, that it is a data model. And the ESCO, I have nothing to say, like we had a very comprehensive presentation, and specifically for digital competences, there is a framework that it's called DigComp that can also be quite useful if you happen to manage this type of digital competences. And that's it on my side. I'm very open to any question you may have or to any further clarification. I hope that it was useful a little bit, the overview, and that somehow you could relate to it, and it can be nice for developing then your projects.
Thank you a lot, Isabel, for this very interesting and inspiring presentation. I think the topic of the micro-credential is very important in the nowadays, especially when we are talking about such concepts like first skills or skills-based employment. Within the EXIT project, for example, we are going to work also with target group like adults, low-skilled adults, to whom we are going to offer a set of upskilling and reskilling approaches, and at the end of which we are going to issue the micro-credential, because we believe that it might inspire and help them to re-enter or to be reintegrated, or support them to what is considering the entering of the labor market. Now it's time for the questions. Does anybody have any kind of question? Please raise your hand, open your mic, or put your question into the chat. Rosita, please.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for this useful meeting. I was missing the part of ESCO, but I would kindly ask if there may be some registration or just materials to share. And concerning the speech of Isabel, I was asking if she know that this kind of micro-credential in Italy can be similar to the scheda di attestazione competenze that generally we used and we issue for training project financed by ANPAL, and all the that training we are now used to use this kind of scheda, this kind of scheme for yes, to manage and to make clear all the competencies workers get during their training. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the question. I must admit, I don't dare to say like, yes, it's exactly that or it's not, because I'm not an expert on the Italian system, but definitely I invite you to go beyond the name and to go to the concept of like what a micro-credential is. So in that sense, if what you have enhanced in Italy is something that is based on learning outcomes, that record the learning outcome of a small volume of learning, right? That it is quality assured, that there is an assessment method behind, that it is a credential, right? That it's owned by the learner, that it can be portable. So if you go to the essence of what a micro-credential is, trying I mean, according to the European approach to micro-credentials, that is what we try to promote, right? Then, yes, sure, this is a micro-credential, right? Like we don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we are trying to do is like to propose a common way to deal with this type of credentials that somehow has been always there. But like now they have like mushrooming, they are all over, and we are like missing some potential of them because of this lack of order, right? So we are proposing a way to organize them, that is this European approach, and anything that may fall under this concept can be considered a micro-credential, and hopefully the idea is that when keep working on them, on developing these systems, of creating ecosystems, of creating catalogs, of including them in national qualification frameworks, we keep the European approach in mind and we follow these principles and we include these standard elements. That's a little bit the work ahead, right? But it doesn't mean that it's something to do from scratch or that nothing is done in your countries on that. So most likely, if like this that you are mentioning, when fitting with the concept, with the definition, yeah, like that's the way to go, and hopefully every time more aligned with this European approach.
I don't know if there's anybody in the audience that can share this kind of view and use.
Of course, Rosita, we maybe we can address your question through the email. We'll try to make this a kind of comparison and try to answer your question through also the email comparing to the Italian education system. Eleonora, please.
Hi. I just wondering, we always talk about micro-credential for adults, but I think that would be very useful also for young people if we think to NEET, for example.
Right.
Do you know any project or research who is working about it to see the impact of micro-credential also on young people and NEET or young people who has troubles in the standard system of education?
Yeah, that's definitely one of like the big potential for micro credentials, right? That for anyone where having the capacity, whether it is economic, but also can be like, I don't know, emotional, mental, whatever, like the capacity of investing on a longer degree, like micro credentials, what offers you is the flexibility to get it like one bite at a time, right? Like little by little, one step at a time. So for that, it is like have huge potential also for young people, for sure, that, for example, has dropped out the school system, and that's a way like to re-engage them, like to get a taste, for example, of what a vet degree would be, or even a higher education would be, or secondary, why not? Yes, for sure. And this is included in the, because you asked me for a specific study. I'm not sure if I have, like now I don't have on the top of my mind a case study, but what it reminds me is like the latest publication by CEDEFOP portrays 4 scenarios in which micro-credentials are being used by vet providers. And one of them is like for vulnerable groups, which might include needs. So I recommend you to take a look at that. It is on my slide. I can share it with you afterwards. On my slide on research is the latest article by CEDEFOP, that is the use of micro-credentials in vet or something like this. And there is like the 4th scenario, if I'm not wrong, is the one that talks about micro-credentials for vulnerable groups. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Any other questions? If not, maybe I can ask one, if I may. My question will be, so we are talking about the introduction and use of the micro-credential in different bad contexts for different target groups. But my question will be how we can encourage employees to recognize the micro-credentials. I know that is quite complicated question to be answered, but it's also the kind of hot topic, how we can encourage them or make the awareness to them that the recognition of the micro-credentials is quite, is very important.
You mean how can we encourage employers, right?
Employers, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's a very good question. Like the idea is to create an ecosystem where all stakeholders are engaged from the beginning on the design. So I think that's already like a key principle to bear in mind. So we have to work with social partners. Like this cannot be something that education and training providers do on their own, just thinking like maybe from their side of like, okay, the training providers and the learners and what are their needs, but like social partners, like trade unions and employers organizations has to be part if we want those micro-credentials to be actually relevant and target for the labor market. So I would say that first of all. And then also, if you want, like, yeah, how do you create trust on a system, right? At the moment, we're in a context of labor shortages. So let's say that employers are looking forward to find qualified and skilled people, like they don't have much to choose, right? So it is a common effort for sure, like to develop an adequately skilled workforce. But I would say that in that sense, the context is favorable. That if an employer if someone comes with a micro credential saying I'm able to do this and a chance is given and the person is given to do this, I would say like it is the right context where to boost like this recognition, right? But like definitely I would say that the first step is that when designing and issuing micro credentials, every stakeholder is around the table from the beginning, and specifically social partners like employers and trade unions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was just wondering if any other question here. I think nope. So I would like to thank a lot our speaker. Thank you a lot, Isabel, for this intervention and inspiring presentation. I remind to everybody that the materials will be available and shared together with the recording on our webpage. So for now, I would like to pass to the break time of 15 minutes, and then we will start together with the Kia Likitalo and to the introduction of the European Digital Credential for Learning. So thanks a lot again to Isabel, and see you everybody in 15 minutes.
Thank you.
So we can start and come back to our event of today, and we can proceed with our final intervention from Kia Likitalo, a European Digital Credential for Learning Implementation Support Officer, who is going to introduce us to the European Digital Credential for Learning, the tool for digitalizing certificates, diploma, and other learning credential. Kia, I would like to give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Irina, and thank you for the introduction. Let me just share my screen, and I do apologize. I am working with one screen, so you get to see some other things as well. I hope everything is fully visible. As mentioned by Irina already, I will be providing an introduction to European Digital Credentials for Learning, which is an initiative of the European Commission on quite simply digitalizing European or digitalizing credentials. It is not a self-standing initiative. It is a part of a wider policy framework of the European Commission. It works together with promoting recognition of qualifications. It works together with digitalizing education as a whole, as well as promoting a skills-based approach. So it does integrate into the wider policy context of the Commission and plays in together with the other initiatives mentioned today. So you will hopefully recognize some of the things that were presented earlier as well as I am speaking. But maybe to just get started, what is actually a digital credential? So very simply put, it is a digital presentation of a traditional learning credential that is in a natively digital format. So this means any credential. It can be a full-on diploma, it can be a micro-credential, it can be a certificate of attendance. It doesn't matter as long as it's somehow linked to learning, and this is directly issued to what we call a wallet. And a wallet is essentially just a safe space to store these digital credentials in a native manner, which is just a space for it instead of let's say having it somewhere in a file. It is a space that is meant for it, where you can be directly verified and shared from. And having a digital credential means that it's also interoperable. It's a specific format for these type of documents. To go a little bit more in detail, a digital credential has two main aspects to it. So we have the content itself, which is at least one claim related to a learning achievement of a person, and it creates a link between the individual who has achieved this claim and an awarding body who is then actually certifying that this person has related this claim. And it will have additional data linked to it, which is structured in accordance to a data model, in this case the European learning model, meaning that we have a specific way of providing this information, allowing it to be compared between different credentials. So this is what makes up the content of a credential itself, which is generally up to the organization issuing it, and it is then in a envelope which provides a security aspect of it and seals the content of the credential. This is what provides a trust in a digital credential that makes it tamper evident, meaning that it cannot be changed in any kind of way without it being visible, and that we can have trust in its authenticity. This is done via the use of an electronic seal, which is a digital equivalent of an organization's rubber stamp, and it is something that any organization can get from so-called trusted service providers, and it is in accordance with the EIDAS regulation of the European Commission that provides a framework for digital signatures and digital identification. And why is it that we actually need digital credentials? This will make up the first part of my presentation. Generally, we do live in a digitalizing world, so having a natively digital credential is important. We need to think about security and trust when we're thinking about digital credentials. We need to think about recognition. We need to think about how these can help showcasing knowledge and skills, and making sure that the ownership of the data that is at the center of these credentials. So when we talk about a digitalizing word and a digital transition for credentials, we can think that, okay, we already issue digital versions of a credential, whether it is a PDF or a scan or whatever. Why do we need to go beyond? It is really a move beyond paper. Generally, what we have right now as a PDF is just a representation of what we have in paper, but is not really adapted to a digital world. We are already seeing that these digital credentials are emerging in the market, and that there are different versions of this available. So you may be familiar with open badges, with different badges that you share on LinkedIn. There are different competing initiatives, and we need to make sure that there is a standard for these, and that we can trust in these different digital versions of credentials that are available. We need to make sure that we can actually share these online in a meaningful way, and that we can trust this online version, and that we can actually have these in one place. And there is also a cost and time efficiency part to it. If we can issue credentials directly in a digital format, it can help us automate this process fully. It can help us save costs in issuing the paper credentials. If we're talking about diplomas, these usually are quite a costly procedure. So if we can streamline this full process, have it fully automated, have it online, it can help us adapt to the current reality of a digitalizing world, while also providing us with cost and time savings. And if we are going to digitalize credentials, we need to make sure that we can trust these. So having a European digital credentials means having it sealed with an electronic seal, as I mentioned. It means that the information that is in the credential itself on who has issued it will always be visible. You will always be able to trust the origin of a credential as it comes from a digital signature. This cannot be forged in any way. It means that you can trace where a credential came from, and that you, as somebody who's also verifying a credential, will know that, okay, this is a trusted provider of a certain type of certificate. I can trust the knowledge and skills of this person. In addition, the electronic seal makes it tamper evident. It is actually sealing the document in an electronic manner, meaning that once it has been issued, it cannot be altered in any kind of way. There is a authentication and verification checks that runs whenever you're opening a digital credential that will show that the credential is technically valid, who has sealed it, but it's still valid, and it is verified. The moment you try to alter this in any kind of way, whether it is changing the name of a person who received a credential to steal someone else's credential, whether it is trying to improve your own grade, changing the origin of a credential, this format check will fail, and the person who is viewing this credential will know that they can no longer trust it. So this is something that goes beyond what is currently used, such as PDFs, which can be quite easily edited, and you are never sure of actual information in the document. If it's a credential with higher value, you might feel the need to actually call the institution who issued it and see whether this is actually a truthful representation of the credential that a person received, or whether this person even received a credential from this institution. So it's really helping in providing trust in the information that is contained in the credential itself. And with this trust, we are also supporting recognition. So as already mentioned, we can trust the origin of a credential. It is, the credential is always structured in the same way. So it is containing structured data that means that there is a certain fields, certain ways that you will provide information about learning that makes them easily comparable with one another. Once you get familiar with the system, you will know where to look for the information, and you do not have to think about how information is presented from different sources. You will know that a learning outcome is a learning outcome. You will have the same language used throughout the different credentials that you receive. And while the data language behind is always the same, a European digital credential is multilingual by default. So that means that the content of a credential can be provided and navigated into 29 different languages. You will always be able to see some of the basic information in any of the European languages and a few more. And in addition, you can make them natively multilingual so that you can have an English version of a credential, and within the same file, you can also navigate it in, let's say, Finnish or French, or how many languages that you would want to provide the information with, which is becoming increasingly important as we are more and more mobile on the labor market. We're moving around. We may wish to have an English version that we can easily provide without having to have it translated, or also in case where we have several languages within a single country, we don't have to have different versions of credentials. Let's say in Belgium, where I am, I wouldn't have to have a French and a Flemish one. It is one credential, and they can just easily switch the language. There's also an aspect of interoperability. So we are aligned with existing frameworks on a European level, such as EQF, NQF, ISCO, and ESCO, and the micro-credentials are recommendations as well. So these our initiative are directly integrated within the system itself, meaning that you don't need to make additional efforts to align or to think about how we can integrate these our initiatives. It is natively in there. Finally, there is also a possibility to include accreditation. So if you are issuing qualifications, for instance, or anything that is linked to a formal accreditation record, you can directly link this to a credential, meaning that a person viewing this credential will be able to see that a credential for a certain qualification was issued by an accredited institution, which can be especially interesting in a certain vocational sectors as well, where it is a regulated profession. You need to actually be able to double check this on who has issued it. Then, as we talked about ESCO already, the idea behind digital credentials as well is to go a step further than your regular learning credentials. So if we think about how we receive diplomas in paper format, it will usually just have a single page saying the title of a degree or the title of a credential itself, who received it, and from whom. The idea here is that you can really go beyond that. You can link the learning outcomes directly in a digital credential, and you can browse these, see which ones apply to a specific achievement, and go to the level of even the related ESCO skills to a specific learning outcome. This also means that you can easily browse the grades, whether there was a certain learning activity linked to it. So a person went on an internship, and during the course of their degree, for instance, and this can be highlighted directly in the credential with even the feedback from the organization on how they perform during this internship directly integrate. So it really allows for data-rich credentials where you can easily understand what skills the individual has certified through these credentials, and at what level, whether it is by checking the EQF level of a credential, or whether it is by saying what grade they received during a specific course. And what is also important to note here is that this is not something that you have to navigate if you don't want to. If you're happy to know that the person just received a credential, you can just trust the verification checks, but you always have the option to go further and find additional information about the person's learning achievements. And then we have our final importance here, and this is empowerment through data ownership. And what do we talk about here is that we are living in an era where data privacy is becoming more and more important. People are thinking about where their data is stored, who they share it with, and how they can access it easily. So the idea behind the European digital credentials is really to have a learner-centric approach. They will receive the credential directly to their wallet, and this is not something that is a precondition at the moment. We provide a wallet through Europass that can be accessed by anyone who wishes to create an account, but we acknowledge that this is not something that everybody has at the moment. So you can also issue directly to an email address with instructions on how to create this account, and encourage users to get this. And I know that this can sound a little bit abstract right now, but I will move on to a short demo in a moment that will hopefully clarify this a little bit. But the idea is that the person will receive the credential instantly, and will not have to wait for a ceremony, or to receive it by post, or anything. In the ideal scenario, the credential will be automatically generated when a person finishes a course. It is automatically sent to them, and they can access it as directly as they get an email. This also allows to bypass bureaucracy. And why? Because they will have control over the original credential itself, that they can choose to share with how many people as they would like, in as many times as they would want. So if we're talking about a diploma, normally you might need to request certified copies, ask or if you're not asking for certified copies from your institution, you might need to go in person, show your paper diploma to make sure that it is real. This allows you to completely bypass that step and share a link to your credential that can be instantly verified. And this link allows you to also control on how you're sharing it, for how long. Meaning that each time you create this link to share it with somebody, you can time it so that, okay, I am sharing my credential for the time period of a specific application. I do not want this organization to have access to my own data for longer than it is necessary. They can check that I have the relevant skills for a position, for instance, and after that, they do not need to have my real credential anymore, instead of how it is generally today, where the employer, for instance, might keep scanned copies of their employees' diplomas just to be on the safe side. This allows you to be in control of who you share your data with and for how long. And just to link a little bit with what Isabel was talking about, I unfortunately missed presentation, but I do hope that this will still make sense. I'm sure that Isabel presented the mandatory elements of a micro-credential and how this should be structured. I just wanted to highlight that when it comes to micro-credentials and EDCs, these are fully aligned. So all the mandatory elements that are listed in the Annex 1 of the micro-credentials recommendations are directly mapped to European digital credentials as well. So there's an easy way to create a micro-credential as a European digital credential and have this completely visualized there as well. And I will show a small example of that later on as well. So to make use of these European digital credentials for learning, if this is something that you would be interested in, the European Commission offers a full infrastructure to help you get started with issuing digital credentials. It is completely for free. It is available for anyone who wants to start this process even right now. The only prerequisite that you would need to have is to be in possession of an electronic seal. And this is something that you can get from a trusted service provider in any EU country. There are different price points for this, but this is something that is generally very affordable and will be definitely cheaper than issuing them on paper, for instance. So what is offered by this infrastructure is a tool to create these templates for your digital credentials and build them directly online in an online credential builder, using the same tool then issuing these credentials to the recipient. There is a wallet for individuals to actually store these credentials securely in their wallet and to securely share them with third parties, allowing then these prospective employers to directly verify the credentials' authenticity and validity. The web-based tools are a great way to start piloting, and it is what we recommend as the first step. But we also have the full infrastructure available as open source code, meaning that if you would wish to go further with this eventually, you can integrate this within your IT system to really automate the full process and issue digital credentials automatically to your recipients without having to do any extra work. And to help make this a little bit easier to follow, I would like to give you a little demo as well. I mentioned that we have a set of web tools available. This is the entry point to them. So this is the European Digital Credentials for Learning Issuer, where once you have your electronic seal, you can test its validity. You have an online credential builder to build your credential templates, and you have a possibility to directly just seal and issue your credentials if you have created them somewhere else. But generally, you will have to build them here. And building a credential is relatively simple. It is just creating a form with all the information that you would wish to have included in a credential. You will have a series of templates on the different types of credentials that you want to issue saved here. Obviously, if you are starting from scratch, this will be empty. And you would just start by creating a new credential template. And you will just have to fill this in, fill in your credential title, fill in the description. You will need to put a valid from date and choose a type of credential that you wish to create. Generally, it will be a generic credential and accredited if you want to link an accreditation record to it. And you will have to have a single claim linked to it. So generally this will be an achievement that somebody, for instance, completed a course or a degree or whatever it might be. This can sound a little bit overwhelming as it is a series of fields that you might not be super familiar with just how it is formulated here, but worry not. We have full mappings available. For instance, if you would want to have issue a micro-credential on how you actually go about it and which fields you would need to include there. And starting from just mapping what information you have available for a specific course that you would want to issue a digital credential from. Once you have this idea of the information that you would want to include, it is relatively easy to see where in these templates it would fit. And if not, we have a support team that I'm part of that is fully available to help you with the first steps, to guide you in the process of mapping your information to the fields available here and how you can create this credential, and we are very happy to do so. Just to give you a little bit more of visibility here, you can directly include the learning outcomes. As was mentioned, you can directly include a thematic area, a language of instruction, mode of learning. So you see here that most of the fields are self-explanatory. You do not have to fill all of these in. Not all of them will be relevant for your particular case, but the idea is that you can issue EDCs for any type of learning experience. So what information you will want to represent in a full master's degree and a non-formal learning experience will be completely different. As the system allows you to do both, you will have all varieties of fields available, and you just need to pick and choose what will be applicable to you. Once you have created your template and you're happy with the information that you have there, you will go on to issue the credentials. And this is the only point where any personal data is included in the platform. We do not store any personal data of the credential recipients here. It is really aimed to be with respect to the General Data Protection Regulations, so we do not store or process any personal data. However, we will generate the credentials here, so you will need to input it for the time of the issuing process. Here you will choose what personal data you want to include. By default, we just ask for a name and an email address. You can choose to add additional details, which we do recommend to help learner identification. Once you've done this, generally you will just download this Excel template here. You will copy paste your recipient information, but I'm sure that you have already stored in an Excel file somewhere on who's participating in your course, and move on to the next step. I will not show it with an Excel template here as it is not the easiest, but you also have a possibility to enter this manually, but you do not have to. So I will just give my details here. I will give an email address, and I will confirm that I have a right to process this personal data. I will go to the next step where I will be able to visualize who I'm issuing credentials to and how many. I can also double check here what it looks like. I will then move on to sealing the credential, and I do not have my seal connected, but I will quickly seal the credentials and send them. And it's a process that only takes a couple of minutes, so I can easily have this done. And once I have clicked on send, the credential will be directly received by the learner. And how they will receive this is that they will get an email to the email address that I provide, saying that I have received a European Digital Credential for Learning. It will have a file itself attached. However, this is only a machine readable file, so they're not going to be able to open it. If they already have a Europass account, they will also have a link to how to access it in their wallet. If they do not have a Europass account yet, they will have instructions on how to create one. And I will now move on to Europass to show how it looks from the perspective of the recipient. If you're not familiar with Europass, it is a it is a tool by the European Commission as well that provides learners with an online portfolio to manage all aspects of their career and learning pathways. So essentially, this is somewhere where they can have a profile with all the information about their career and learning, which they can then use to automatically generate a CV out of it. They can create applications, and as part of it, they can also store their digital credentials or other credentials in their Europass library, which is where this so-called wallet resides. So this is the certificates and diplomas sections, and these are all different digital credentials. As you can see, they can look quite different, so there's a full possibility to customize these as well with minimal IT knowledge. It's simple HTML coding, but you will have to be familiar with it to do the full customization, but it's not too difficult. From here, I can choose to view them or to share them onwards with third parties. And if I am then viewing a credential, this is what it will look like. So the first page will be the customizable view, which is something that we're more familiar with when it comes to credentials. So it will have the titles, the institution, and certifies that a specific person has completed a specific course, for instance. But this is fully up to you to choose what information would be here and in what form. The second thing that you notice is that we have these authentication verification checks that are fully valid in this case. So this authentication verification check is run every time a credential is opened, and we can always trust that the credential is then valid. I noted that these credentials are multilingual. Here we have it in English and English only, but if it would be provided in different languages from here, I would be able to change this. And here I can also share this credential. I will always have to give a valid until date, and I will get a individual share link that I can then send onwards with my application, for instance. And when I am opening a share link, I will get this exact same view as I have right now, except I will not be able to share it further or create a further share link. And these share links are managed through Europass, where you have the possibility to unpublish them, extend their validity, do whatever you would like with them. And you can even create share links that would include your CV, your different digital credentials, your cover letter, have everything in one place so you can easily apply for job opportunities. Then on this side, we have the metadata of a credential. So if I click here, I will have the information about the recipient of a credential. I will have the name, the country of citizenship if I choose to provide it, contact information, national identifier if needed. As I showed, this is not mandatory information to be provided, but you can choose to make this as detailed as you would like. I will then have information about the issuer. And here we make a distinction between the awarding body and the signed by. If you remember, I said that the electronic seals informs who has issued a credential. So here we can see that is the organization test, known as test seal, and the information from its seal itself. And this is information that I cannot change. I cannot pretend to be someone else. This will always come from the electronic seal, showing that we can know where the credential came from. And this is where we make the distinction from the awarding body, as this can be another organization, meaning that for instance, I can be a training institution that doesn't have an electronic seal, and I can have somebody else sealing it and issuing the credential on my behalf, and I can still have this information shown here. What this also means that if we have several awarding bodies for a credential, this can also be reflected here, for instance, in the case of a joint degree or something else. Then we will have the information about the achievement itself. So here, my achievements is a COVID-19 vaccination administration. I will have the learning outcomes that are linked to this achievement itself. So I am able to administer vaccines, and which are the specific ESCO skills linked to this learning outcome. I can choose to go for ESCO skills if there would be another skills framework that I would want to relate to. That can easily be done as well. I can have other achievement information here, which is following learning, credit points, thematic area. I can have a linked learning activity that led to this achievement. So for instance, I participated in COVID-19 vaccination training course in order to get this achievement, and I can have information on what this learning activity looked like, and I can also have which assessment or examination proves this achievement. So I will see that I have a grade pass here, that it was a written examination, the mode of assessment was online, what grading scheme applied to it, whatever information I would like. And this is still a relatively simple one, but I can make this as complex or as simple as I would like. Although we do encourage to make use of as much information as possible, as it is really this additional information that provides added value for digital credentials. And just to go back to our presentation a little bit, if you would like to get started with this, it can sound a little bit overwhelming, but we do encourage you to start simple. Think of a simple credential that you could pilot with, let's say a certificate of participation for a training, something small where it will be easy to gather this data. Then go about mapping your credential data. So see what information you have available of a course and how you could include it in credential, what you would like it to look like, what you would want to highlight in this credential, and then from there create your credential template, access the online credential builder, see how you can start creating your own templates. If this is something that is a little bit difficult, get in touch with our support and see how we can help. Then go ahead and get your electronic seal from a trusted service provider. This is usually a relatively simple process of just approaching them and asking for a quote. And then you're essentially ready to go, and you can start piloting with a first simple credential. And this is it from the side of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions right now, or of course, if it's something that will come up later on, do not hesitate to get in touch with us or join our Futurium group, which is also a community where you can connect with people who are already issuing digital credentials and ask your questions there to have more a hands-on answer than one might be a little bit more theoretical coming from us.
Thank you a lot, Kia, for this inspiring presentation and also for the very interesting demo. It also worth to mention that starting from 2021, we as Cento Forum, the coordinators of the EXIT project, we are practicing and issuing the micro-credential through the Europass digital credential tool, and we have piloted it in several EU projects, and we gain a lot of positive feedbacks from our participants who received them on the facilitation of the certification process and also of the issuing of the certificates to them after taking part in several training activities. So all the feedback that we get so far were very positive and inspiring, and they find this initiative very very, very interesting also from the point of view of the beneficiaries who receive the micro-credentials. So now it's time for the Q&A. Do anybody have any questions? You can raise your hand, open the mic, or simply put them into the chat. Lara, please.
Yeah, good morning. Lara Porciatti from the Regional Development Agency of Emilia-Romagna region. Thank you for your presentation, very interesting. And I would like to know if you can give an example of any experience you might know of regions or cities that provide this opportunity of digital credential in a, let's say, a framework way. I'm thinking about an experience that I know that is in Brainport, in Doven, that I know that they invest a lot in terms of policy and strategy to foster this kind of tools, and they design, let's say, they did this policy that's called, if I remember well, learning regions or digital learning regions, something like that, and they provide also tools and platform to foster this sort of tools. So I was wondering if you know some experiences from a perspective, regional or I guess the city local experience from a perspective also of policy. Thank you.
From a regional level, not so much. I am aware of it but in Italy, it's more your IT providers that are in touch with us to see whether they can offer this as a tool on a regional level. However, there are a few national initiatives that are working on providing this infrastructure for, let's say, all universities or all public schools in area to use it. For instance, the biggest one right now is Certi Digital, that is a Spanish initiative that will allow, as of early next year, all public universities to make use of their implementation of the European digital credentials to issue. In Poland, there is an ongoing work to do this for micro-credentials specifically. So this is something that is more only emerging when it comes to regional national initiatives, and we have more individual implementations at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. Any other questions? I also remind you that you can address your question to through the email info@exceed.com, and we will try to respond to them together with our speakers. So I think that at this point we can thanks a lot, Kia, for your interesting intervention, and as always, super professional. Thanks a lot. And at this point, I presume that we can wrap up our session of today. Thanks to everybody for the participation. In the chat, you will find also the link for the evaluation of the session. So please take a couple of minutes to answer to that. We will forward all the materials to you by the email as a follow-up email of this session. And also they will be all available on the Exceed webpage after the 16th of December. I would like also to remind you about the upcoming session in January that will take place on the 23rd of January about the CEDEFOP skills intelligence and what trends in advanced manufacturing subsectors, and also we are going to present the work of the EXIT project on the observatory in advanced manufacturing sector. So from our side, we would like to thank you for your participation. We wish you a happy holidays and see you next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Irina. Really very, very,
Thank
very
you.
interesting.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.